Welcome back, guys, to my very first video of Madden 21 and my first video in some time. I want to take a bit of a break from YouTube just to make sure I'd be fresh and motivated at the beginning of Madden 21. This game clearly has a lot of improvements on the gameplay side, as you can tell, from what's been marketed to us, but there are many other improvements under the hood that may not be immediately obvious. So, true to the nature of this channel, we'll be going over some of the things that aren't as well known or aren't as well discussed, and go over, how they can be used to make you a better Madden player. So this video is the 21 new improvements to Madden 21 that haven't been shown to us that I think are very, very interesting. Now, because we'll be going over 21 of them, obviously we can't go into too much detail here, but that's what future videos are for. So, if you aren't subscribed to my channel, now would be a great time to do so, because we'll be going over offensive and defensive schemes, deep dives into gameplay mechanics, and the occasional glitchy tactics as well. But anyway, without further rambling, let's get into the video. So one of the big things I noticed right away is how much halfback slip screens have improved, or really any screen passes in general, due to a combination of things. So one of the big changes was that the halfback gets out into his route much better, much quicker. So he gets out there quicker, and he also goes around his offensive lineman, so you won't see any situations, as far as I've seen so far, where he's getting hung up on his tackle or his guard, and then by the time you throw it to him, there's a bunch of other defenders there, and he just can't move at all. So he gets there much quicker. The quarterback throwing animation is better. Madden 20, even if it's a little dump off, it's like he's throwing a 20 or 30 yard pass or so. And then, as you'll see, is a big theme of the things we'll go over here is that the back can catch it and turn upfield much quicker in this game. So we're just going to do a variety of random passes here. So you see he just gets there quickly. Of course, if there is somebody on man coverage on him, he can make a bit of a play on that. But in general, this is going to be a really good option for you. On defense, you're actually almost going to have to, once people start to catch on to how good these are, you're going to have to think about, every single play, make sure to watch for the screen first, because if you're not watching for it, it's going to be a pretty good pass, or a pretty good play for your opponent. So you just see there, you just catch it upfield, and then you just swerve in and out of your blockers. And the other really cool thing is here, just before we get into the other stuff, is that you can even use this against the heavy blitz stuff. I don't know how effective that's going to be this year, but say last year one of the common things was sending 6, even playing man coverage there. This guy is mugging one of the gaps. Because in previous years you could, and last year at least, you couldn't really throw to the back out of the backfield just because it just took so long to do that stuff. But now, even with this aggressive blitz, you can get that off, and then assuming you can get around the guy that's in man coverage or the user, you're going to be golden there. Second big improvement is to counter runs. So in general, across the board, a lot of these runs that take slower handoffs, like pistol runs, counter runs, I think draws, even some of the powers and stuff like that, they have tuned it so that the block shed timers on the defense match up to it. So if it's a slower handoff, then it's going to be a slower potential block shed. So what that means is that you're going to have more successful runs other than just dive and stretch. And actually stretch might be a lot worse this year. So it's not as consistent as, say, like an inside zone or dive or something like that, where you can pretty much guarantee yourself 3 to 4 yards or so. But it has, big play potential. So in this case, we had a situation where we didn't get anything. As we go through different counters and against different defenses, you'll just see these pop off. And then you got all these pulling guards and pulling tight ends and everything, and you just have much more of a chance to pop off a big run. So where this is going to be really good is that, you're hitting some consistent dives, hitting some consistent stretch plays or inside zone. And then, when you see your opponent kind of overcommitting to one side, then you hit them with the counter to the other side, right up the seam here. Usually got some blockers going to the second, third level, and you're going to be great. Number 3 is the quick passing game. So, again, this is, something what I was talking about earlier, is the ability to catch these quick passes and immediately turn upfield. And, these random plays that I'm getting here aren't, spaced particularly the best, but, with the slower user now, this is even going to be much better if you have a quick game to the left and a quick game to the right. There's no way you can have a user, take away your initial read and then go to the other side of the field. You're just going to have a ton of options. Even in man coverage there, it's a contested catch. It's still an option. But against zone coverage, just finding that sweet spot and then just turning that upfield, maybe you can get 5-10 extra yards. That's going to be a really great addition to this game. Number 4, first one for the defense side of the ball is wheel route defense with man coverage and match coverage. So, in previous years, it was just a gimme one-play score, just running a wheel route against man coverage, whether they're pressed or off or shaded whichever way, or depending on ratings or whatever. The wheel route would always win, and it was just a freebie one-play score that, you really didn't have to think about. You just throw a wheel route out there as long as you can see the man coverage, and it's a pretty easy score. So they did a good job here of working that in so that the defender doesn't bite as hard on the initial cut, and he's kind of expecting that receiver to go upfield. And you see in this case, he passes them just because, it's Ruggs. He's got that speed advantage, but not as badly. One of these PA wide receiver in plays, out of these, trips look was another big one where you have that wheel from the slot. But in this case, again, that man defender plays this much, much more smartly, and that's not going to be an easy one-play score for you. This next one is a nice addition, though it's not something super important in terms of gameplay and getting better at this game, but it's just a nice addition because, they made a lot of work on the authenticity of the game before and after the snap to make it look more like real football here. So one of the cool things they did here is with all cover 3s, so this is just at a nickel here, they changed how it dynamically aligns to different formations. So here we just have a regular shotgun trip set, and how it's going to align here, the corners and everybody else is the same, but it's not going to be a single high look as you would normally expect. Before, it was just static. It was always going to be the same, depending on what the formation was like before you make the call at the play call screen. But now it's a lot more dynamic. So here it's a nice 2 high look. You don't know what it is. It could be cover 4 quarters. It could be maybe some variation of cover 2. But as soon as I motion over this guy to create a regular 2x2 doubles look, you'll see that flat defender comes down. They do this thing called rock and roll. So now he's down there because you want that slot defender over that wide receiver. I motion him back. He doesn't need to be there anymore, and it's back to the 2 high look. So it's unfortunate maybe in a sense where, as somebody on the offense, I could quickly see if they're cover 3 by just motioning this guy over. It's pretty obvious. But it just adds to the look and feel of the game. Even if it's not necessarily going to make you better or whatever. But it's something to look out for, at least if you're on the offense, as a potential tell of what you're going up against. And while we're here, we can also check out number 6 here, which is halfback swing routes. So swing routes have been overhauled a little bit. Before, they were just probably one of the worst routes in the entire game, where the running back would just slowly gets into his route. He's looking back at the quarterback. He's really just completely useless. And then, he runs into the sideline. And a lot of times you'll catch that and he'll just run out of bounds. But they did a lot of work in terms of how fast he gets out there and the path that he takes. Plus, again, I've already mentioned it a couple times, that once he catches that, he can actually turn that upfield. So this is just a regular swing pass. We don't have to look for some crazy table route or anything. And you get 5 easy yards there as a potential great check down. So this is going to be especially great when you're coming up against people that are, using those zone drop adjustments where they're bringing those flat defenders, 15, 20 yards or so to take across those crossing routes and those corner routes. Now it's going to be really hard for them to do that because you have a viable check down option at any point. You just put that guy on a swing route. If he's good, you can make a guy miss and take that for more than just those 5 yards. So number 7, this is pretty much related to the first one with the halfback slip screen, except now we're talking about the jailbreak screen. So this was added, a couple years ago. Really cool play idea, but was never really any good for, a variety of reasons that we talked about before. The one where, you catch it, takes forever for the wide receiver to turn upfield, and, by the time he turns upfield, you had a block shed or something like that, and you really don't get much of a gain. But here, again, we can catch that, turn that upfield, follow our blockers. Of course, you're still going to have to deal with missed blocks sometimes. Targeting is still sometimes an issue, but, if it wasn't, then it would just be way too overpowered to run this. But the other great thing is that you can quick throw this. So you don't have to wait for a play action animation. You don't have to wait for, a slow throw from the quarterback. You can catch that and immediately turn that up there. If you throw that too quickly, then your blockers don't get out there. So that's one potentially poor thing about this. But, if we wait, a split second more, we can catch that and we get an extra couple blockers and we get, at least 10 yards, potentially more. So definitely check these out. So this is a different one right here out of Raiders where you're actually throwing it to the slot wide receiver. So, if somebody's pressed up in man coverage on the outside guy, you don't really want to risk anything there, but you see a little bit of room on the slot guy, you have an option here too. And the jailbreak's great because you got a ton of guys coming in front of him. You could potentially cut that back in field. It's just going to be a great way to hit them with that quick passing game. Number 8, having the box check on all quarters formations. So before it was only on palms, and the tricky things about that is that palms isn't in every formation. So if you're running 3-4 odd, or if you're running 3-3 stack or something like that, you're not going to have option for palms. Sometimes you won't even have quarters. You might have just cover 6, but now it's on all of the quarters. So cover 6, cover 9, kind of quarters, and palms. So what box means, if you haven't seen it before, is that the match coverage here will build a box essentially over these compressed sets like bunch and the gun tight formations. So if you are struggling against corner routes, i.e. like something like this, or if you're running a sail, that corner on that strong side will get in a nice little sweet spot to defend against those corner routes. So in this case right here, he just totally blankets it, and usually that's going to be an interception for you. So again, this is in all quarters plays. So, quarters, palms, cover 6. You can run this out of 3-4. You can run this out of 4-3, nickel, or whatever. If you're having issues with corner routes against compression, this is going to be a great call for you. There's still a little bit of wonkiness on the weak side of things, but we'll get into that in future videos. Now, you could also say, well, what about, we have the zone drop adjustments in this year. We can easily defend those corner routes. But if you're doing that, you're giving up the flat, essentially. But what's great about box here is that you have a short flat guy, an outside guy, a deep guy, and an interior guy. So you can essentially you can take away the flat and the corner route. If you didn't see it in the last one, we'll just go ahead and like this. We know that that corner was taken, and this flat is also taken right here. So you really don't have an option there, and you don't have to manually put in a hard flat. Number 9. Much improved blocking on the under center jet sweep plays. So jet sweeps were added last year. Really, really great play. The under center ones were, left a little bit to be desired because, maybe half the time or more than half the time, your blockers would essentially ignore this guy right here, so that, when you hand the ball off to your jet sweep guy, he almost immediately gets tackled in the backfield. Didn't happen all the time, but enough to make it so you just can't run it at all. So in this case, we'll just go ahead and run it, a few random ones against a few random defenses here. And you see good blocking, and we get that outside right away, make a guy miss, potentially get a touchdown. So I fully expect these type of plays to be a big problem online because they are going to be really, really difficult to defend. So in this case, you don't really have the numbers and you're taking it to a tight end, so it might not really work out right here. But, even here, you could turn that upfield and you just see how well the blocking turns out for you. And then because this is going to be so good for you, you also have the ability to add the fake halfback zone to the weak side off of that. And again, this also applies to the block shed timers adjusted for slower handoffs. So that's going to be a little bit more effective this year. Plus, you can do the play action off of that too, which usually has some nice crossing routes and corners and things like that. But yeah, by and large, it's going to be awesome, especially if you have a guy like Tyreek Hill. In this case, the blocking wasn't great, but, we still got 5, 6, 7 easy yards from that. And number 10, one of the things you guys might be most curious about is stretch run improvements. So this, you kind of have 2 in 1 right here. You're going to see the overhang or the force defender, how well, how wide he gets, and also the middle linebacker, how wide and around the edge that he's able to scrape across and, make sure that, that around the outside gap that everybody likes to hit with the stretch is not there. Now, potentially you might, give up the cutback lane. But something I would suggest is taking a backside safety and just cleaning everything up and letting everybody else do the work for you. At this point, I think stretch might be completely unusable this year. The defense just really, really plays it well. So this is out of a 4-3 look or a 6-1. It might be a little bit different depending on your formation or the coverage you call. Sometimes cover 3 is a little bit wonky, but by and large, cover 4, cover 2, where that middle linebacker is really clear who it is, he's going to come across nicely. So if the overhang guy doesn't get me in the backfield like he does right there, you can see how well the middle linebacker does. So improvement number 1, you can see this force defender. Before, he kind of cut inside, and he was easily washed out of the play. So you could pick the worst tight end in the game and the best outside linebacker, best defensive end, and the tight end would win every single time. You could even put in like a custom 0 rated guy and he would win every time. But now, the ratings almost don't even matter to the other side, where you get that nice outside path, and it essentially forces you to funnel things up in the middle, in which case a lot of times there isn't anything there. Now, you can potentially have a situation where your opponent just does that crazy spin move and cuts back across and inside, but then that's what I was talking about before. You might want to take a backside safety and just make sure that you have everything cleaned up. Now, also, we didn't get a chance to see how good the middle linebacker here is because we never got to that point in the play, but you just see how wide he gets. And he's usually able to get across and outside there unblocked and make a play on the ball. So if you're struggling against stretch for whatever reason, 4-3 is great. I think 3-4 can work also. But just let these guys work. They're going to do it for you. And then just be aggressive with a backside safety against dive. Dive is still pretty good in this game. But by and large, if stretch isn't good, I don't think people are going to be touching dive because that was kind of a 1-2 combination from before. Another one on the defense is a really nice addition. If you want to be really aggressive on third down or really aggressive on fourth down, is the ability to shade underneath with man coverage and actually make a substantial change to how your defenders play on the ball. So in this case, and let me just reset here. Actually, I'll even shade up. Against just man-free coverage, cover one right here. This was never really a great coverage because, you're not getting in the guy's face, and, really any cut on the ball, out route, curl route, corner or anything like that is able to get, free against these man defenders, and then you're just left, with no answers really. So, one of the big things, you can run an out route or you just a curl route or in route, and that was just always an easy way to beat that, especially on third and fourth down when you really need it. But now, if you shade underneath with like triangle or Y and then down on the right stick, you can see that they play a little bit more, in my opinion, much more aggressively underneath. So just watch that corner's technique. He immediately kind of gets in a trail technique right here underneath the guy, and then if we try to throw that there, he's much stickier on that. Now you want to be careful here because if you go ahead and shade underneath, and if I am actually running a streak right here, well, the wide receiver is just going to burn right by him. But that's the risk that you're going to be willing to play there. So if it's third or fourth down, you know that they're going to be throwing to the sticks with, potentially a curl route or whatever. And if you like man coverage, or, if you're running zone coverage the whole game and you want to throw this out of nowhere, that could definitely be a good option for you. One thing to note is if you are running press coverage, like cover 2 man or something like that, it doesn't really take effect. So it's really just off man coverage that you want to care about. The one unfortunate thing is that it doesn't help you against slant routes. It would have been really cool if they really drove hard on those slant routes. Again, just selling out for that first fake, but knowing that you could potentially give up that one play score with just a streak over the top. So a really nice addition. One potential thing that I might go over as a scheme is to play kind of a cover 2 man look right here, where you have safety help over the top, but you are aggressive underneath with your corners. And you can disguise this in some ways to make. Right here you could never tell if it's man or zone right here. So, they could think that it's just, a cover 4 or a cover 3, but it's aggressive man underneath. And then even if they have somebody over the top right here, so they beat the corner, but the safety's there. So it's safe, but also aggressive. I think it's potentially a great defense for this year. Next one, and this one's big for me, guys, is that they put match coverage back into cover 6 against trips. So, when they first added, cover 4 quarters and cover 4 palms, they had, trips answers for cover 6 and cover 9. Then last year they took them away. So largely they were spot drop coverages, except against, 2x2. But in this case, they're back in the game. So I talked about earlier is that the quarter side of this against, the compression is going to have a box check, but against the regular trips, you're going to play special coverage over the trips. So what that means is that the number 1 wide receiver is man-to-man with the quarterback. The cornerback is man-to-man with the wide receiver over there. The nickel is going to take number 2 vertical, except if the number 3, the tight end, goes to the flat. And this safety has number 3 vertical, except for that same condition. If the tight end goes to the flat, then he'll take number 2. If that's confusing, if you haven't seen my videos before, it's definitely something we'll go over into more detail in a future video. But for now, it's awesome to see. And then on the back side, you're going to get either the corner or the safety matching the post. So in this case, I believe by default, these cover 6 and cover 9s. Cover 9 will play out a little bit differently, but it also matches. I think that flat is a soft squat by default. So in this case, if we are running the post there, the soft squat is going to match that. And he actually does a pretty good job there. In that case, he just got beat, but he's actually pretty close to his wide receiver. But what's actually cool here is that if he is a cloud flat or a hard flat or something like that, and by the way, with the zone drop adjustments, it cancels all match stuff out, so just keep that in mind. But if you don't have any of that, they will match. So in this case, the corner doesn't match, but the safety's smart enough to know to pick that up. So a really, really cool and underrated thing that I'm really going to take advantage of this year. Next one is that the RPO read animations are so much better. So in the last game, you got to be understanding that it was the very first year that RPOs were in the game at all. So, for it to work as well as it did last year, I think is pretty impressive. But there were a number of, improvements to RPOs in general. And the biggest one, in my opinion, is the RPO reads, where, after you read the initial guy with your quarterback, so if you get the keep read, so, the defensive end goes after the running back and you keep with the quarterback. In last year, he kind of got stuck in mud and he began going left and right and all sorts of crazy things. In this year, you can just take that and immediately turn that upfield. So if you have like a Lamar Jackson, you get that keep read and you just turn that upfield immediately. So it's going to be a really devastating play for you if you're able to master it. And then again, it's not a conventional read option here because it is kind of a triple option right here. So if that second guy comes after you, you have the ability to throw this bubble right here and take that another way where it's really hard for them to defend. I think if people can really pick them up, I feel like RPOs have the potential to be extremely overpowered this year. I think inside runs are really good, and then the quick pass game is really, really good, and especially against these slower users that can't really bait you playing the run and then coming back to pick off the pass. It's going to be really, really easy for you, I think. And there's a number of other additions here. So in some of these crazy, open bunch sets where the glance read or, the pre-snap read is this little out route on the other side right here, it's much improved right now. So it's kind of like a speed out route. So if you have off-man coverage there, if the corner isn't pressed up on him, that wide receiver is going to get this crazy break here and this crazy separation where you can just catch that. And again, you can turn that upfield much, much quicker. And that can be a big game for you too. And back to the defense with this one is how well off-man defenders play, particularly against in-breaking routes. Not so much post routes. We'll get into that maybe in another video. They kind of struggle there. And I know in a previous tip in this video, or one of the top new improvements here was that underneath shade, and I kind of showed how out routes against off-man coverage are getting open here. But that being said, it has been improved, particularly against these deep dig routes that have been a really big issue. Actually not that big of an issue. People weren't really crazy on them last year, but they're really good because it got into a spot that would get open against any zone coverage, and then it would beat any sort of man coverage. Now, this year you have the ability to drop those hook zones back and defend that. But again, if you don't want to give up absolutely everything underneath, this might be a good option for you right here. So you see this 15-yard dig, and you just see how well that cornerback plays that. So in that case, you got that catch. But in some cases, if I run this over and over again, you'll see that he gets a bit of a step on him there, and if we throw that there, we could potentially click on and make that interception right there. So this year, I really, it's still early, but I feel like a off-man coverage could be really good in spots, especially on 3rd and down or 4th down when you've been running zone coverage and then they're expecting zone coverage. Like right here, could be cover 3 potentially, and they're throwing that dig to get behind those zones, but then you have that man coverage defender ready to make a play there. So that's going to be really, really good for you. And then this is going to translate to cover 4 quarters, cover 4 palms and everything as well, where before, those deep outs, those deep ins are getting open, not so much in this case. And of course, you could also shade underneath to get you a little bit better against those cuts as well. And back to zone coverage, or actually man match coverage. This year, first year really, is that these soft squat zones actually will match against trips. So they would work, we knew how they would work regularly against regular 2x2 sets, is that it would match number 1 vertically, but if number 2 goes to the flat, he would essentially jump that. So it's kind of like a trap coverage where you're making it seem like the flat's open, but then he comes down and he's either there to lay a big hit, knock the ball out, or potentially even make an interception from there. But against trips, he just essentially played a regular dumb spot drop zone, and you weren't able to get the most of that. So if you're running your hot, crazy cover 2 blitzes where you're giving them the flat or making it look like they have the flat, and you want to trap that, now you have more options where you can actually run that against trips, and I feel like trips is a little bit more popular. So in this case, we just have a vertical route here, a deep dig route, which it looks like that corner is going to take that, but it looks like the flat route's open here, but you see that the corner is able to break on that. In that case, I think, like this crazy zig pattern allowed the corner to get a little bit more depth and come underneath that for the wide receiver to have more space to catch that underneath. Well-designed play, I think. But if it's something like a little simple out route right here, I think that's going to work, not as well here. You'll see the cornerback out here. But, back what I was saying, at the start is that soft squat will match his man vertically if number 2 doesn't go to the flat. So if he goes underneath, you'll see that he'll actually play this dig. Now, he doesn't play it super well, but he's there to make the coverage a little bit more sound. And I put this here in cover 9, but it can work in cover 2 sink or any of the cover 2 blitz plays, or really anything. You just pop a soft squat over there, he's gonna play that way if it's trips or doubles or whatever. And it's not even just the number 2 guy. So if he's on a vertical right here, but number 3 is on a flat, you'll see that he'll trap that as well. So it's really whoever it gets first to the flat. If nobody's there to the flat, well then he's gonna take his man vertically and be a little bit better, just a little bit more sound in coverage. So I think that's a great addition to this game. And back to the offense. We're almost done here, guys. So this one is pistol runs. I just picked a random one here. Years past, this would have been a horrible play call. You'd never want to run this. But again, because those block shed timers were adjusted based off of the handoff speed, this makes it a lot more viable. So, Ingram isn't the best running back, kind of slow, but you see he's able to hit that hole and get a nice chunk of yards. So if you want to run a pistol scheme, like a pistol read option, like these Ravens actually run, now you actually have that ability because you can, hand that off, and sometimes you'll still get a block shed. But by and large, I think it's better. I think it's probably better to look at things like counter and stuff like that. Like these inside zones still aren't great. They'll usually get you a couple yards, like I've been saying before, but some of those counters could let you pop for more. So one more right here, Ravens power out of this kind of pistol strong wing look. You see you get those nice lead blockers there, and you'll be able to get a nice bigger chunk of yards. So more potential for a loss of yards, but more potential for a big play. And you could run that to the weak sides, probably not as good. But again, you don't get those instant block sheds, so it's going to be much better for you. Play action boot plays. So these have been not really used at all in the last few years, mainly because the blocking just doesn't really work out. A lot of times after you get done with your play action, you're just, you have somebody immediately in your face, and you have nowhere to go with the ball. Even if you have like escape artist or whatever, the guy's just in your face and you're not able to get around him. But this year, the blocking just seems to be much, much better, to the point that I think it actually could be really overpowered right here. So really just here and just picking random ones against random defenses here. And especially with Lamar Jackson, I mean, you're just able to get out easily to the outside there without really anything to worry about. Right here we have goal line. Probably wouldn't see goal line against this type of look, but again, we can, if nothing's open, we just take that upfield. Now the reason why I say this is potentially overpowered is that if we pick just a regular play here and we see these contains, it's actually really easy to get around these contains right here. So same thing right here. In this case, we just had a double team, so it'd have to work out anyway, but the tackle does a good job of pinning that guy inside. So again, just run 2 more of these. We'll even show a blitz right here. Well, I mean, he's blitzing to the wrong side, but anyway, we have contains right here. We have a nice little boot play, and you just see how easy it is to get out of the pocket right there, and we can scramble, or we can throw the corner or the crossing route. We could, potentially make our own play. So if you want to be like Kyle Shanahan, you want to run the outside zone, you want to run the dive, and then you want to run the boot off of that, well, this year you finally can do that. A lot of options coming with the crossers in the corner. Plus, if you have that speedy quarterback, it's going to be really, really nice. This one's for the shotgun passers, or really just any of the passers in general. The zone auto chucks that these slot defenders have on these quick routes or deep routes is much less aggressive right here. Probably a little bit too soft, like they don't engage with the slot defenders at all. And this is probably something that's not super well known or super obvious from previous games, but if you really dove deep into those, that those slot defenders, whether in the cover 3 or cover 2, they're able to just essentially destroy the timing of any of these routes over the middle right here. So if we see on the left right here a zig route, previous years, he would get totally mixed up with that slot defender there, and then just the timing would be all sorts of wrong. But in this case, he's actually able to, run his route. So he's not going to be able to be pushed 5 yards inside or elongated by 5 yards or whatever. He can actually run his route, and you don't have to worry about him getting caught up, and then you get a sack off of that. So it just allows for a much, much smoother passing game, in my opinion. Now, of course, this is just one of those things, along with, catching a quick pass and moving that upfield, that makes it seem why passing is much, much stronger in this game. And I think for good reason. I think passing the ball is the way of modern football, and we should definitely allow us to have those weapons on the defense side of the ball as well, on the offense in this game as well. And then on the right side right here, we're not really going to get open here because the coverage does well, but you see, by and large, we were able to get free with that kind of pseudo corner out route. Okay, so if you're curious if Big Dime 146 works, it does not really. So I'm kind of torn about this one. I never really ran this at all, actually, but it's great that it was kind of, toned down and nerfed essentially. But at the same time, there really aren't many ways to get pressure on the quarterback in Madden, and this is just another one that we don't have an option to get pressure. So they made some changes to the contain assignments. They don't come in as fast. And I think the blocking is just a little bit better, so that we bring these guys in, we're sending everybody. But in this case, we don't even have the enough blockers to account for it. But you'll just see here that it takes much longer. The quarterback throws it much quicker, and we're able to turn that upfield there. So I really don't think it's going to be a viable defense. Another cool thing is that you can actually run against it. So you don't even have to worry about dissecting if it's going to be an all-out blitz or if they're going to drop back in coverage. Before with the shotgun, with this stuff, you really weren't able to run against it because these overhang guys, these nickel and dime linebackers, or say these nickel and dime cornerbacks, were able to round the edge and essentially get the running back in the backfield. But in this case, that running back, or that handoff is much quicker, and it's not a great run defense in general, and there's just no way that you can stop that. So even in this case where we had essentially a 7-man box and we only had 5 blockers, we were able to pull that guard around, and we were able to get that easy one-play score. So I really think 146, unless it's totally spread and it's totally like 3rd and long and 4th and long, I don't think it's going to be a great option. I think if I added a tight end here, I could have totally easily blocked those 7 guys and then just, use my 3 other guys and stay in the pocket, throw that ball, turn that upfield, and been effective right there. But even still, I didn't even really need to block the running back either. Could bring these guys in. Again, same thing, sending 7 right here. And then again, that halfback swing route is really good. So I have a little bit of time in the pocket. I could throw that out there, take that upfield. Corner did a good job of reacting, but I was still able to get 5-10 yards right there. And the last one, I know this was one of the main selling points of this game. Well, not one of the main selling points, but one of the great factors of it is those zone drop assignments. We all know about it, but I'm just beyond excited about it because we're finally going to have an answer for this play where you see the crossing route all the way across, but we have a cornerback 25 yards and this cloud flat taking that completely out of the play. So I'm super excited about that. Finally, we have an option against these crazy crossers and corner routes every which way. Of course, we're giving up the flat a little bit, but if we're doing something like this, put those curl flats in 0 or 5 yard depth, put the clouds in 25 yard depth, and you're gonna be good. You got a couple of hooks over the middle, you're safe over the top, you got another guy over here. You got some nice options there. Of course, you only have 3 pass rushers, but it's still always going to be a give and take game. It's just awesome that we have more options here. Plus, with all of the other improvements to the game, I think it's going to be really fun, guys. I'm very excited for it. I know you guys are. Definitely let me know if you guys find any other cool things that may have not been put on the gridiron notes, may have not been advertised or been talked about in the community. If you notice anything cool, definitely leave a comment down below. otherwise, that's it for this one. Kind of a long video to start things off in Madden 21. We're definitely going to be going to more details on all these things, plus much more as we get on to the Madden 21 season. Okay, that's it for this one, guys, and I'll see you shortly in the next one.